Um, let's talk a little bit about fertilizing. Um, when do you fertilize? Why do you fertilize? Well, in in the greenhouse and in the garden too, the plants that we grow need food to grow and get bigger and stay healthy just like we do, and they want good food preferably. So, what we do is we have to give them some fertilizer. The plant in these little guys in this pot are going to grow and use the existing nutrients in each cell that they're in until most of the available nutrients are no longer there. They don't just pull them out of thin air in most cases. There are some exceptions to that, but we won't get to that today. But when they are depleted, the plants won't be as healthy. They're going to still try to grow because they're young plants and they have a whole life ahead of them. But if they can't get those nutrients, they won't grow as quickly as we like them to, and they won't be as healthy or able to survive transplant. So what I like to do is use an organic fertilizer, and it's not rotten V8. No, this is known as fish emulsion. It's an organic fertilizer made out of decomposed, or sorry, it's not decomposed. It's ground up fish byproducts. So the guts and all the parts that we don't like to eat, the fins and bones. What they do is they grind it up in a plant. A lot of this comes from Maine, and they mix it with an emulsifier because the parts of the fish are very oily. So the emulsifier makes it so that it's mixable with water, and that's why they call it fish emulsion. Now, I got this from a very large barrel, and that's why I put it into this container so it's easier to handle and mix with water. And let's see. It looks kind of like it's got a brown color. To me, it smells like chocolate, but I've smelt this for a long time, so I don't really smell a fishiness. It's not that bad. When it rots, if you let it sit out and expose it to air for a while, it'll start to smell bad. But right now, in this form, it's not that bad smelling. So there are instructions. You can buy this in much smaller quantities. You can get quarts of it or pints and little containers, and they all contain instructions for applying to plants. So follow the instructions closely. In general, for a container this size, which is about 2 gallons or 2.5 gallons, I'm not exactly sure. It's the nice thing about organic fertilizers is if you put a little too much fertilizer in, it's not going to hurt the plants. If you use something like Miracle Grow or any of the blue crystals that they sell, those are strong chemical fertilizers that if you add too much to the water, you can actually harm the plants because those fertilizers are salt-based, so they're not like table salt. You can't sprinkle it on your omelet and enjoy it. It's not nice, but it's still a salt nonetheless, and it can burn the roots of the plants. This is just organic fish emulsion. You can over apply it, but it won't kill your plants, which is nice. So it's a little more loose as opposed to mixing it, but there are preferred instructions. So for my watering can here, I'm going to use the glug method of measuring it out, which means I'm going to pour it in, it's going to go glug, and then I'll know to stop. But generally for 2.5 gallons, you want maybe about up to half a cup of fish emulsion. If you're doing, 1 gallon, a couple tablespoons is good. Now, before you choose to fertilize, you have to make sure that you look at the stage of the plant. And so a seedling like this, it just came up a week ago. Its root system is barely developed. It doesn't need fertilizer just yet. You can let it go a little longer. If you fertilize it too early, you might encourage root rot or other pathogens to decompose the plants in the root system, which is still very delicate. It doesn't need a lot of fertilizer. It still has these cotyledon leaves, which are giving the plant its protein, or it's nitrogen, and it's even some of its sugars. So you really want to wait until the plant develops its first true leaves before you apply fertilizer. So I'm not going to fertilize this plant, but this flat of carex, which is a native plant, I'm not going to call it onions because even though it looks like onions, but pretend it's onions. These are, they have a lot of leaves and they're actively growing. So I'm going to fertilize this plant and maybe some of the other plants in the greenhouse since I'm mixing up a whole batch. So when you mix fish emulsion or any kind of soluble fertilizer, I have an empty container here, so I'll show you how to do it. You want to first add a little layer of water, so maybe about an inch or two at the bottom. Right? So that's about good. You added I have about 2 inches of water in there, and that's so when I pour this into the container, it doesn't stick to the plastic and stay stuck to that bottom layer of plastic and never really mix and dissolve. And this goes for mixing any kind of chemical or making a solution of anything in general, because you want to make sure that you get this product evenly dispersed throughout your whole solution. So I'll add a couple glugs. 1, 2, yeah, that's about 3 glugs there. That's good. Not very much is needed. Okay, so what I'll do now is with that first base layer of water, I'm gonna give it a few swirls and shakes and try not to splash it on my clothes. Okay, that's good. But now since I've got the hose, that will do the rest of the mixing anyway. So I'm gonna use the hose to fill it up the rest of the way and have it swirl around and around. That's the smell. Alright, so it's it's a frothy, foamy solution. And I'm going to go ahead and pour this on my flat of carex, or onions. And I'll show you about how much to give to the plants. You don't need too much. See, and you see it's got a nice color to it. That's how you know you got a good solution. And I'm just kind of flooding the cells. So I'm doing the outer edges first. And then, so I'll make sure they all kind of get it. Then I'll hit the middle really quickly. And that's really all it needs. You don't have to go crazy and inundate this tray with fish emulsion. And you see some of it will run through anyway. But that's pretty good. Generally, when you fertilize, you want to do it on a weekly basis. Once a week is a good dosage for plants. And especially if you do a light concentration like this. It's not a very heavy concentration of fertilizer. The greenhouse is going to stink like a fish market for maybe 2 days. But after that, the smell kind of calms down and it won't smell anymore. And you'll probably get to like the smell if you really like plants, because when you smell a greenhouse that smells like fish, that means that's what healthy plants smell like. So once a week. The last tip with fish emulsion or any kind of liquid fertilizer that you use with plants is on the time that you're ready to transplant your cell trays into the garden, what I like to do is get a tub or a wheelbarrow and make this same mix at the same concentration, and fill the tray about the wheelbarrow about 4 to 6 inches of this solution, and you can dunk your flats like this. You can dunk them in let them sit in that fertilizer solution, and it will soak the root balls with them, so that when you go to transplant the seedlings into the soil, each individual plant will already have a very healthy dose of fertilizer, so that when it starts to set down new roots, it automatically has enough fertilizer and enough nutrients so that it can grow and will minimize transplant shock.